Hello, and welcome to FYRSYD Conversations. Your host, Mandla Ndlovu.
And I'm Tumelo Tehle. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, today we'll be tackling the subject matter of gender-based violence against men. Now, the thing is, a lot of people know, when we mention the acronym GBV, we think about women and children, and which is, correct, but then at the same time, we need to understand that men also suffer, from gender-based violence. So I think that, we should actually elevate the conversation a little bit more so that when we speak of GBV, it actually encompasses all those who suffer from it. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think so, because this thing of gender-based violence against men has been there. It's just that it has been muted. So we need men to talk about it and tell us what they go through on a daily basis.
Yeah, hence we've named this episode The Hidden Side of Gender-Based Violence. Take it away to me.
Okay, today we are having Dr. Skhalo Khumalo from Kanana here in Klerksdorp, and we are having a legal expert, Ramafala Ramatshosa, who's going to address the matter with us.
Yes, you got it right this time. Yeah, so now the thing is, getting into the subject matter, let's first of all introduce the good doctor. Doctor, welcome to FYRSYD Conversations.
Thank you, Mandla. It's a pleasure to be here, sir.
Okay. Advocate?
Thank you very much, Mandla.
Yes.
It's nice. I see we also have got this beautiful cups. We have a nice drink here.
Yes.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, it's not those illegal ones.
No, it's not. It's not. We've got the good doctor. Maybe we can even toast.
Nice. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. Either of you gentlemen can address the subject matter in its entirety, or we can, delve into the one that we came here for at a bit of a later stage. So, yeah.
But maybe to start, can we start by maybe explain to us, how do you understand gender-based violence? What is gender-based violence in your own knowledge, before we get to the gender-based violence and focusing on our victims, which are men?
Okay. As to me, if I may, there's a saying, even though I cannot. So I would like to go first, and Dr. Ramatshosa,
Yes, I'll do so, Doc.
Thank you. But I think that we need to take it all the way back. We need to get the proper background of this subject matter. Because when you're catching it at the level of GBV, the issue, Kuri, how does it start? And I want to believe that any violence starts off as conflict, right? Mm-hmm. Isn't it? Mm. There has to be conflict, right?
The difference
there has
of
to
opinion,
be a conflict.
Yeah.
There has to be a difference of opinion between two people regarding a certain subject matter. Mm-hmm. And that's how conflict starts. And so for me, the thing is, for you to address GBV, first understand how it starts. So conflict usually occurs when two people are failing to compromise. There is no concession, there's no middle ground, isn't it? We have an issue that we are addressing, me and Dr. Ramatshosa, and for some reason we don't see eye to eye. And you will quickly realize that things tend to escalate, right? Mm-hmm. Quickly, from a disagreement to an argument. And the minute you get to the point of an argument, it becomes emotional, right? And then within the confines, especially of a space that is very small, like when you have a couple living together in a home, if that happens repeatedly, you build resentment, right? Mm-hmm. You start to build resentment, irritability, and later on, anger. And then anger then leads to that violence. You see, so that's the evolution of this thing. So how we understand it we have to first look at how it starts, and therefore it ends up being gender-based violence, because now we're looking at it between two genders now. But it always starts as conflict that is not properly managed and resolved.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, sorry, I shouldn't have interjected. Yeah, take it away, Advocate.
All right. I think my understanding of GBV and ostomy and Mindlos would emanate from, because the essence of the word in itself, gender-based violence, I think it's also problematic in itself.
Yes, sir.
In that it wanted to categorize violence. And as a result of the categorization of violence, we then gave it more weight and not deal with it with the weight that we have afforded to it. We defined it, and then in its definition, we were unable to can now come with a solution to this which we have defined. Because I think that once you have identified a problem, it becomes easier for you to identify a solution or bring into being a solution. Mm-hmm. But now the conflict between a man and a woman, which has now been turned into, or which has now been defined as gender-based violence, is a conflict that we find ourselves in the middle of it when we were born. But the scale in which we find ourselves in it now is at the same scale that it was maybe 20 or 30 years ago, before the enactment of the Domestic Violence Act in 1998. It's the question that those who are involved in research might be able to assist us with that, with the answer to that. But like a doctor has said, that it is a conflict that has led to a state where people don't want to resolve it, and they think that violence now become the solution because dialogue has failed. And I think the reason dialogue has failed is that the way, I'm coming to this definition, the way we were socialized as we grow up, as young boys, we were socialized in a way that we would have seen women as not our equal. And by virtue of seeing them as not our equal, and those who were looking at our elder brothers, we would have also seen how they would have treated the women there. And my generation, and the generation before me, it's the generation that would have engaged themselves on things in different townships. Others would be called lepanda, when different boys would want to take advantage of one woman and there would not be consequences and repercussions
running
for
a train.
For that which they have done. Now, in a twinkle of an eye, we were now told that this thing is unlawful. And when we now enacted the law, we just took the law and threw it at the people and not deal with the society and the change of the mindset. You see? And now what we are now doing as a society is that we are now empowering a girl child to fight against a boy child in her defense and deal with this GBV. And the boy child is not empowered by anyone, which now becomes the topic for today. Which later on now, we will now find a girl child having an upper hand and a boy child being the one who's now on the receiving end, because every time when we now want to deal with these issues, we look on the one side of the coin and ignore that there are two sides to every coin. Now, conflicts, according to me, have always been there between people and societies. But conflicts have always been managed by the very same societies. But we have reached a stage where conflicts are not managed by anyone now. And we have moved to a stage where there's too much entitlement from both sides of the coins. Every side of the coin feels that it is entitled, and the other side of the coin feels it is entitled. So my understanding of GBV, because that was the question, would not be different from what Doctor has said. It's a conflict. And every conflict has to be managed by people. But unfortunately, this conflict called GBV, it's no longer managed by the people involved in the conflict. It is managed by third parties. That is why we are now having a problem. And the reason that even those who came with this concept have said or have decided to call it GBV is because they also knew that this conflict is bigger than them.
Yes, sir.
And now they addressed it at a political level and left the social problem of it to us as a society to decide how we deal with it. So GBV in simple terms for me is a conflict between two people which now escalate to involve other people. And the two people who in essence were not supposed to even find themselves in a situation where they would have conflict and resolve it by violence. But the thing is that we cannot take away the fact here, we have been socialized, man, to believe that that
Yes, sir.
maybe we must also revisit those words that we have created as a society.
That's true.
And those words that we have taken as our idioms are the ones that has given birth
To this monster.
GBV.
Just to come in, one last thing, Mandla. Perhaps we should say right from the outset that we are not apologetic for men. And we actually understand that the bulk or the vast majority of GBV is still meted out against women.
Against women,
So
yes.
we would want women out there to know that we know the plight of women. And we understand, especially in South Africa, that a lot of women, femicide is strife here. People are dying, our sisters. But we are trying to do is to bring a different perspective to this, to say that there's also this problem that men are facing. And like Ostumia Bwile, the problem with men is that we are muted. We are quiet about it. So this promises indeed to be a very informative and exciting discussion.
Yeah, no, that's true. The thing is, with that understanding that, the bulk of GBV is meted against women, I think that our viewers should understand that we are not dismissive of that fact. Yes, it's something that we are still going to attend to. It's a matter we are going to attend to. We're going to sit around here. We're going to involve different people, whether it's victims or perpetrators and so on, so that we can address it. Like you said, it's a very bad, thing in our country that we are experiencing. Yeah, and I just wanted to ask another question. Whenever we talk about GBV, people think about it as something that happens between a man and a woman. Is there something such as GBV as in men against men?
Yes, sir. In fact, I was reading an article the other day that in certain societies, especially during times of conflict, right, when two parties are at war with each other, certain groups of men will use, I want to put it this way, they will try to dominate another man. And in order to dominate you, they will have to put you in a position where you are like a woman to them, right? So if we are, let's take, for example, within the prison system, certain groups of men who are powerful, who hold high-ranking position in that enclosure, they will violate you sexually. So they feminize a man, right? That's still a form of GBV. Even in our societies, there are certain people who are preying young men or young boys.
Yes.
Right? For sexual purposes. So that, for me, would still fall under GBV, even though the victim here is a man.
Is a man. And the perpetrator.
And the perpetrator is also a man. So that you can be targeted as a man by another man for that type of purpose, and that would still fall as under GBV.
Okay.
Or if we are in a war and me and Ramatshosa, we are fighting your clan and we have won the battle, and now we are saying to each other, Ramatshosa, let's go and rape those men in front of their women, so that we are instilling fear.
Yeah, and actually, in actual fact, some people might hear that and think it's laughable, but it does happen.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, but if I'm trying to sum it up, what you said about definition of GBV, it's an inequality.
Yes.
It's an issue of inequality, yes, and also conflict,
yes,
that is resolved by violence.
Yes.
So when it comes to the psychological part, Dr.
Yes.
Khumalo,
Yes.
how do you deal with it, and the judicial part of it, how do you deal with it?
I think that one is directed to you, Advocate.
No, okay. I had also to me had dealt with the psychological part of it. I would not dwell much into it. But then let's look at this issue, and then I'm going to bring the issue of the law into it. The last aspect that has been raised, I want to come into it so that I answer Ostum to say, can this GBV also be meted out on other men? And the doctor has given an answer to say yes. Men and men. Mm-hmm. You understand? Now, the problem of it, something that we also have to take a moment and ponder on it, is that you are a man humiliated by another man. And then after you have been humiliated, you move into an environment where you find the wife and children and so forth, and the anger that you come with from the street.
Yes, sir.
It's now transferred on the people who become
Your immediate family.
The very
immediate
people that you
family.
love.
Yes, and those who are innocent,
Yeah.
of this thing.
Yes, sir.
Now, what is it that is happening now is that we now, when the legislators have realized there's conflict and there's inequality, what they then did was that they now enacted legislation, came with legislation, comes with the law. You see, well, a law is always a social contract between those who are ruling and those that they are ruling. It must be a contract between us and those people. But now the problem is that these laws that comes into the picture, let's take for argument's sake, the Domestic Violence Act. Take a moment, to me, the Domestic Violence Act is applicable to a man, it's applicable to a woman. But now, because the people who create the laws, including partly those who interpret the law, and that is us now. I'm talking about me and my colleagues, we interpret. The politicians created the law. Now, politicians create the law. The society is told that there's this kind of a law. And the society is told this law will protect you. And indeed, that law will protect those people.
To what extent, though?
The unequal, and I'm coming to it, the unequal, so that it can level the playing ground. Now, in a conflict like me has asked to say, now this GBV, it's as a result of conflict and inequality. Now, what is it that the law says? The purpose of the law in a situation such as that must be to level the playing ground. But the question is, does the law level the playing ground in an instance where there's inequality? And a man who's sitting at Sonorvater or Pitiri Suleya will tell you that that is not the case. The law in a conflict that relates to GBV is not in favor of them. And if you want to see that the law is not in favor of them, go and check statistically the number of cases of men who have reported that they were abused by the women at the police station It's
And we're
minimal.
laughed at.
The reporting is minimal. The laughing at, it's at an alarming rate. Those who walked out of those police stations humiliated more than when they walked there. And who does not even follow this case to the latter. And also go and check the number of men who were bold enough to report that case, bold enough to see to it that that particular case goes to court. And those who did not enter into offices where they were told, don't you want to mediate this case? Let's resolve it. I'm now talking about men. I'm not talking about women who were attacked. You will find that out of 10 cases that involves men that were reported, one of them, only one of it, went through the court process until a judgment was pronounced. That man was bold enough and withstood the rains, the storms, the winds of the society that was condemning him until the presiding officer pronounced himself or herself on that case. Now the question there that we need to ask ourselves, Osbu Stumelo, is, do we still stick to the definition that we have given to this GBV to say it's a conflict between the unequal? Because it then means that if only one man can withstand the pressure until his case has been pronounced by the magistrate, then the 9 have left it. Then there's no equality there.
Certainly.
There's no equality. Now the question is, does the law or the laws that are there serve their purpose? Maybe this podcast will deal with it at a later stage. But it's something that we have to ponder on. To say, if we adopt and then we have agreed, and unless if there's a different view, we have agreed that it's a conflict between the unequal. But maybe we must describe, when we say unequal, who's unequal?
Yeah, because clearly.
On the psychological part of it, is it because of men's ego, or is it because you have to bottle up because you are a man? I'll give you a scenario where you, it's a family setup and a woman is abusing a man. Children are involved. Children sees. So in terms of respect, men needs to be respected.
That is deep.
So yeah, so I need to know that then you just bottle because you know when you go to the police station, your story will be like, oh gosh.
You are seen less of a man.
Yeah, you know what, to me? Let me come in there. I think that, this topic, Mandla, it's like the mother of all elephants. This is a very big and a huge topic. It is multifactorial in its nature. So, number one, let us accept that we will not do justice in one sitting, right?
Yeah, true.
To this topic. Am I right, Dr. Ramatshosa?
No, you're correct.
Because there are certain things that I'm going to highlight. For example, while we focusing mainly on the violence part of it, but it can also be financial in its nature, right?
Yeah.
It can also be emotional, right?
True.
In how I deal with you, right? I can hurt you intentionally, so knowing very well that if I lay my hands on you, there will be physical evidence.
Yeah.
And then people will take me away. But I can inflict more harm as well by using words.
Yeah, being manipulative and such.
So I want us to, for our audience, for the audience's sake, to understand that we are cognizant of the fact that this topic is multifactorial. But we have restricted ourselves for now to the violence aspect of it, right? So that people can know that we are aware of these things.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing when you're talking about the psychology of it to a man.
The stigma part of
Right.
it.
I think the most important thing that we need to deal with is, before we even get to the emotional impacts of this and the psychological impacts of this, is a man in his own right, in his dignity. How does he feel, right? Especially when he's a family man.
Already said, Doc.
I am a father. I have a wife, right? that on its own, what kind of position does it afford me in society? According to the social constructs. How should a man who is a father be treated? How is he different, Mandla, from a guy who's just a bachelor?
Yeah.
Right? Because there's things, that already means that if a man is committed and he has got a wife, he expects certain things to happen to him, right? So you will find that when men go through GBV, either emotionally, some women can be very aggressive and they can challenge the authority of a man, right? And sometimes it's not even challenging you. Some women can outright disrespect you.
Hence, they say women are emotional abusers and men are physical abusers.
Yes. Men have been told that we're not slata, man.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm no slata, man.
Yes.
You know, they've been told, look at the guy who go next door. You know, look at where we are. This guy, you are a fool. Women,
You know, hence you'll find examples of when a man is able to provide financially.
Yes,
Let's say he has a job. But
Yes,
when he
sir.
loses that job,
Yes, sir.
He's referred to as something else.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you are working, you are referred as a re.
Yeah.
So,
Ntatwa Molapeng.
Ntatwa Molapeng. But when you lose the job,
Modimo.
exactly.
Still on that note, because I was about to say that when a woman is a provider in the house, that's where I think you will find this kind of abuse happening.
But let me chip in, Doc. I know you are dealing with the psychology of it.
Yeah.
But maybe again, because we are trying to find a solution, because everyone is at a stage where they are only condemning after the fact.
Yes, sir.
Because most of the time when people speak about GBVs after the fact, you will see people demonstrating in court there. You will see MEC speaking nicely and ministers speaking nicely. You will see journalists, reverends, lawyers and whatnot making a lot of noise after the fact. And after the fact, I mean when a person has already died.
Yeah.
But what we don't say is that let's look at it and start to see how we socialize people. That leads to this thing of the dependence and the inequality of the entire situation, because we have decided to call this thing inequality. Mindos ausnazaka ujoli.
How you will that?
Yeah, we need to start to speak to our sisters. Relationships are not relationships based on what a partner can give to you. Because this is the other aspect that we don't want to talk about. Now, a man has to do things that he's not supposed to do because he wants to give Mwanyana Mavoso.
You know?
You understand? You also have to feel that you are a man. You must have Zaga, like Doc has said, or you are now next thing you are being compared to the boy next door.
Next door, yeah.
Ramatshosa, how is that affecting you as a man?
No, it's very deep. Very, very deep. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it's very deep. I'm in a relationship with you, Ostumi. I don't have capacity to buy you weave of 1,600 rand. And you say to me you want weave of 1,600 rand. Every day weave here 1,600 rand. When the two of us work in a retail, and in the same salary, having the same problems back home. But notwithstanding the fact that I've got 5 mouths that I'm feeding kohai, black tax, you still expect me to give you money to go and buy weave. And you never know when to stop. And the next thing, when I'm unable to provide that weave to you, you say, okay, fine.
Yeah.
You see?
Already, I feel she's breaking you down as a man. Lack of respect already is a problem.
Mindos, men don't even want a lot of respect. Men have got only one simple thing, which is called an ego. And I always say to people, an ego is like a balloon. It's gone.
It's gone.
It's finished. And now, because we have spoken about conflict and inequality, we cannot ignore the fact that many of the men now, my age, have been socialized that if there's a disagreement, violence, resolve that particular disagreement. You understand? And I will even show you with our democracy. In as much as our democracy, we have gained it not by the spilling of any blood. Yes, so you know our society, like I'm saying, a person does matric. finishes matric, does not go to any institutions of higher learning, udula molekation. Now, because our society rewards violence, that is why people think that when there's a dispute, they can resolve disputes by violence. Now decides to say, okay, fine, there's no water in our section. We are going to have a toi now. Now there's a toi. Now once there's that particular toi, what is it that now happens? He's leading this particular march. Now those who are in leadership starts to ask questions to say, who's leading this thing? Who's being problematic? Now what is it that he wants? No, this person is not employed. What is it that, no, Aramuhire more counseling. They give him a job in council. Now what is it that they are creating? They are creating an impression, no, violence will now make you to be rewarded for that. Now this thing also goes into instances where now there's a conflict between people who are partners. Now instead of them resolving that particular thing by a dialogue, because we have been socialized in a way that when we cannot win on a round table or we cannot win an engagement, we now say, now we resort to violence. Now which also becomes a problem between a man and a woman. There would be a dispute. Now here is a dispute. Okay, fine. Let's accept your girlfriend has decided to go and sleep with another man. We accept. But the question that we must ask ourselves, Mandla, is that after you hit her, kick her, or even to the extent that you have killed her, are you going to now reverse whatever that you were complaining about? Because if he slept with another man, even after Umukitika, you are not going to change the fact that she slept with that man. But because our society has been socialized, and I'm deliberately using the word socialized, when there's a conflict and you cannot resolve it by the engagements, then it resorts to...
You escalate it to violence.
You escalate it to violence. But the problem is that even the violence does not resolve that particular issue. And we cannot shy away from the fact that there are other instances where even our sisters would say to a guy, yes, sir. You understand? A person is reprimanding her. No one has spoken about violence. Others to an extent that they would provoke you even point to more partly. And you try to resist, but why do we always have to say you understand? That's the problem that we find in our society.
Now, don't you think that comes with lack of being emotionally balanced, or should we call it emotional intelligence? Because I believe that as a man, I'm not going to speak for every man out there, but I believe that as a man, when you encounter a person who is like that, because we know there's some women who will say, "Waka anchap, it means oranrat," you know. But don't you think that when somebody provokes you to that level, to an extent whereby they even push you, come on one, now the emotional intelligence, where does it come in? Because I think you should be, strong enough to say, I'm going to walk away from this situation, let it cool down, come back, try and resolve the matter, by interacting with her verbally and so on. And if you see it being a continuous behavior, you can also decide to say, as much as, I really care about this person, in the end, my life is going to be, or her life is going to be in danger. Let me walk away from this situation so that, let's part ways so that we do not get to a level whereby now we become a statistic.
If I can come in there, Mandla, I'm going to set the scenario for you to understand, but I'm going to have to go back to basics again.
Yeah.
So you'll have to excuse me time and again, I'm referring to basics and all of that. But when we are looking at the physiology and the psychology of anger and how it works, right? There's what is called a flight or fight response.
Yes.
Right? So this means that in life, there are situations where your body has to react immediately. Right? Let's say 2 gunmen come in here.
Yeah.
Right? And advocate has a gun. Right? Mm-hmm. I might have to run away, right? But he could be in a position where he has to shoot in order to defend us. Right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. So when you're talking about emotional intelligence and anger, let me just say this to you. the first thing that happens, your body releases very strong and powerful hormones in that situation where you are, pumped up. There's adrenaline running, okay, in your body. Blood is being diverted from certain areas to certain areas. Your muscles tense up. Your heart is pounding. You are breathing fast. Interestingly, this is very interesting, by the way. The area of the mind, right, that deals with rational thinking, right? When you are angry, when you are worked up, that area is inhibited to some extent. So it is very difficult to be rational and angry at the same time. In fact, there's one of my mentors who used to say to me, Ari, an angry person is not a normal person. I want to take it a step further. When you are angry, you are dumb. Eh? Did you hear what I said?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Did you hear what I said?
Advocate is not getting
I'm
it.
now thinking about
He's trying to process it.
my own things, and in essence, what you are doing, Doc, is that you are activating the lawyer in me. In a sense that I'm now thinking, because I normally say, after the fact, you are all intelligent.
Yes.
Now, when you say that when a person is angry, the
area of the brain,
yes,
that deals with rational thinking, does not work.
That does not work. Now, in that situation, then that's when we now need to ask a question about a person who now provokes.
Exactly.
And I think, Doc, this is now, as a podcast, Amanda Ostum, we have to take a moment and speak with women who would, for argument's sake, knows who the partner, and we are not trying to justify anything here, is a jealous person. Generally, like you were talking, why don't you walk away from that particular situation? You know, this one of yours is possessive. And I always, Doc will assist us. I always say to my friends and the people that I know, a psychotic or psycho after 2 years. On the very first date, you realize this particular person is a psycho, including a control freak as a lady. A control freak, you will pick it up, go restaurant thing, abatagoro, ureke di ribsi, when now khaleti di wings. This one is a control freak. Yes, you must into it. Now, when these things have now grown to a certain extent, where now this person now feels is entitled. Now that our people know through the talk, or now, angry, that part it's limited.
Yes, sir.
Now it means for our viewers must know when to speak and when not to speak. You know, and I'm speaking about the provokers now. You see, when to go on social media and say no, mutateng kore ki mo phutile and why it's no nyane nyana gage ga go fele go di ki mamantwana. Once you have said those things and that person is angry, he's not going to it's not me, it's the good dog. Deal with you like a rational person.
It's not.
If you enjoyed Hoja Dinonyani, why do you want an ostrich, or why do you tell a person about an ostrich later on? Because you have never been a person or ostrich. You have always appreciated that body. You understand? And this man, you have given him an impression all along. Hard body. You understand? Now when there is conflict, why ostrich? You are creating a problem.
Now let me come in there. Let me take it a step further. Let me just give it and conclude it that point.
Yes.
I've just said that when you are angry,
You are dumb.
right? Not only are you angry, you are dumb.
Yes.
Right? Because your emotional intelligence, your ability to think rationally and to measure the extent of your actions and the potential consequences is very limited, right? So the force that you use may not necessarily be proportional to the situation at hand. Remember, that response you are primarily given, right, by the good Lord as a method of self-preservation, to preserve my life. When a lion is chasing me or when another man wants to dominate me, that thing kicks off automatically. Now I have to meet this guy and I must overpower him and dominate him. That's what it's created for, right? But within the setting, the domestic setting, we are employing that mechanism, but not for the right reasons now. Now here, I want to finish it off. Think of it this way. Not only are you dumb when you are very angry, but you are dangerous.
Yeah.
What could be more worse than a man who is dumb and dangerous?
Because at that point...
You tell me. What could be more worse than a man who is dumb and dangerous? So men must realize, therefore, good men, there are good men out there. And there are men, as we speak now, Ndate Ramatshosa, who are sitting and languishing in prison. Not because he is psycho, not because these guys are criminals, but in the heat of the moment, they were put under severe pressure, right? Such that instead of that area actually failing to function, they had a total blackout. Complete blackout. And the man ended up shooting.
But Doc, I think that goes both ways. It can also affect women.
Of course,
yeah.
Definitely. Because it is a human response, right, to this situation. Which means there are women also who are languishing in prison as we speak.
Yeah.
Because the men pushed.
Well, what you are talking about, it takes me back to a case. Flabber, he was a member of Squatter Camp, the one who was stabbed by a girl.
Yes.
Right? Yes. At that moment, look, the case is over and done with. She spent time in jail. She's out now on parole, I think. And the scenario that you are painting, I think that she might have gone through a similar situation where she blacked out and then, anyway, we are not taking sides or anything like that. We are just explaining situations that lead to this kind of thing that we are talking about here. So you can carry on.
So basically, the best advice to everybody, right? Let me just say everybody, whether you are a man or you are a woman, disengage and walk away.
But Doc, let us be practical. You speaking to a person that psychologically you say is dumb, and you want him to disengage.
No. You don't disengage at your weakest point. You disengage at your strongest point.
Yeah.
When is your strongest point? Your strongest point, remember what I said, there's an evolution of conflict. And I said from the start, we start with a disagreement, it quickly escalates into an argument. And at that point when it's an argument, disengage.
But Doc, let me deal with it this way. And let us be practical about things that really causes this problem. Let's say now, when we are in this podcast, that as we are in the podcast, you get a call from a friend and say, Doc, you know what I've been telling you about Ramatshosa, he is dealing with your wife.
Hey, you can't say that.
No, yeah. And I'm sitting here with you now, and you are speaking nicely.
Hey, my brother.
And no, listen, come back. And he sent you the picture. Me, not sitting next to you now.
I'm sitting.
I'm sitting.
Good. I don't even want to think about it.
No.
But
we've gone past the point of disengaging by then, because the moment that happens, you move on to the very next level. So
But now, guys, here we want to help each other.
Yes.
You see, we want a person to walk away from a situation. We want the person to choose a better solution. You see, and now we must face. Remember, we are the ones who now want these people to believe what we are saying.
Yes.
Now we must receive the bull and hold it by the horns.
The best thing I can do is to say, Emuna, also look after my children.
And do what?
I get it when you have been busy with my wife.
Yes.
So you are saying when you want to take over my family.
Yeah, exactly.
So if that's the case, for my own sanity, right? Lori, I must avoid somewhere. Perhaps I should just say, is this really worth it? Is this woman?
But Doc, no, Doc.
Yes.
No, Doc. I want us to deal with real issues.
Yeah.
Let us not talk about things that you want to motivate. I'm sitting next to you now.
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to you.
Well,
Disengage, better solution to the problem. The person that you are looking in the eye that you think is a friend is the enemy.
yes, sir.
There's a guy now who's listening to us, Mandla, who finds himself in a situation that he has been told, or when I'm on a bari.
Oh, Jallam.
But then, Ramaphosa, let's dive deeper into it.
You love your president, Ramatshosa.
Yeah, he loves this president. He loves the president.
Violence does not solve anything.
That's true.
But what does?
Dialogue. Dialogue, if to some extent, remember, to some extent, there's a saying that we can agree to disagree, isn't it? Right? And we might have a point where we're saying we'll never agree, you and I, right? I can say, look, Ramatshosa and Nalene will never be friends in life, or we can agree, but I can work with him, right? So how do you solve situations? Firstly, have a great level of self-awareness in terms of yourself, your reactions, your emotions, how you feel. I know myself, right? I know the threshold, right? And I can feel as I approach the threshold. The idea is that as soon as I see that I'm approaching the threshold, perhaps it's time for me to walk away, right? That's why if you look at sports, professional martial arts sports like boxing,
Contact sports,
right? Do you understand what is happening there? There, they are trying to teach you how to use violence, but also be rational at the same time. You understand? That's why there's rules of engagement within the sport itself, because it's very difficult to do, right? Because if you go and ordinarily fight, you want to use your elbows, you want to bite, you want to do it, but there, they are trying to teach you a different way. That's very difficult for a normal human being to do. So I would not say to people, let us allow the situation to go to an extent where you become physical. I would say to you, disengage way before you reach the limit, your limit. Disengage way before, because you don't know that once you've reached your limit, you might wake up now, the next thing, how wash but you've got blood on your hands. You don't know, maybe I took this cup, I just get a message now, Ramatshosa is with my wife, and I take this cup. The next thing, Ramatshosa is lying there, and I've got blood on my hands. You understand? So there's certain things in life where you don't even want to test yourself. By the way, it says, you understand, that's why it said, and lead us not into temptations. Because sometimes certain situations you will never pass. Yeah, disengage way before.
I think the other thing man life kicking in. You see, men must understand this thing. This thing that tigers don't cry. Cry by mistake. It's wrong. It's wrong. We are human beings. The reason we have got tears in our eyes is because we are human beings. If women are able to cry, and when depending on another situation, we are able to cry some situation.
Yeah.
Really allow yourself to cry. I always say to my friends, Kere, sometimes in a situation where a person, your partner has cheated you, treat her like a person who has passed on. Because a person who has passed on, the minute you hear your loved one has passed on, you cry.
Too much.
You mourn that person.
Too much.
You mourn that person.
Too much.
And we must also mourn relationships.
Yes, sir.
Some of the relationships, you must mourn them, not resuscitate them.
Yeah, you can't wake that person.
You can't wake them
so
up.
Don't try and wake up that relationship as well.
Don't resurrect a relationship that has died.
Yeah.
You understand? So our people must reach that stage.
Yeah.
Again, like the good doctor has said, there's nothing wrong in walking away and the society calls you a weakling.
Yes, sir.
And when you get by that corner and you look at that person and you realize that he is the weak one, you are the strong one. And the reason I say that, you see, everyone, there are people that I've represented in my career who reacted at the heat of the moment. When I meet with them in the cells, they realize you see, the society will laugh at you. People laugh at anything. And it's always fools who loves the loudest. Hey, oh, Bari, there are people who will come to you, Manda Bahoreba Wajello. When on to it or Mosadia Hache, oh, Jola Leva to a 5, when I may be 1. Marata Ahote, Arimanda Pari Manda Wajello. You understand? There's quite a number of those kind of people. People will always talk. You understand?
Yeah.
But one thing that I can tell you is that, you know, when you are there and you look back at the situation and the decision that you wanted to take there, that you did not take, you will thank yourself. All of us have been tempted one way or the other. You understand? And then the other thing about men, guys, let's speak to each other. Let's talk to each other. Let us create this thing, let us create a conducive environment for Majitaruna the problems without laughing at them and turning them into a laughing stock amongst Majitaure. Dr. Khumalo, you know, may also 1, 2, 3, 4.
Too much.
Yeah, but coming in there as well, Mr. Ramatshosa, you see sometimes when men keep quiet or keep silent, you know why, Mandla?
Yeah.
It's because you are said you must protect your wife from your own family.
Yeah.
That's one of the conditions in marriage.
But Doc,
am I not right?
No, we're not saying talk to your family.
Yeah.
Look, some situations, that's why I've chosen you. Yeah. Some situations we need to discuss them amongst ourselves as peers. Every one of us must have, man, in as much as Doc, there's a person that we always tell how to flopper evers.
Yeah.
Or we really something that we don't want other people to know about it. Let that person also not outweigh its hell, how outweigh when you are hurt.
Yeah.
Because we are human beings, we get hurt. You understand? But if we don't, you know, a problem or a pain that is spoken, once you say it with your mouth, speak about it. Acceptance is almost there. You understand? And then lastly, the other thing that we need to understand as men, for us to minimize this abuse, is to understand what women are not commodities. We don't own women.
Yeah.
And how betcha is because unobata obecha. Ebra, akono po for stealing. La ikupile 20 times. The moment you take it out, you are not buying anything. Little to the regular, there come a time where you let them go. Some of them they are fella. It's time for you to move on. So if that time has arrived in every relationship, move on. This thing ya gore o create motho a re na ngwana o khale ke mo etsetsa so kanto no mo etsa nail investment. If you want to invest money, go to a bank or into any investment company. Don't give it to another ngwana motho mongwe who expect you to crash later on.
Just to jump in there, I know I should be asking questions, but I think that when it comes to building a relationship, whether la jola or you are married, whatever, I think financial matters. It's very important to deal with them or you are building each other.
Yes.
This thing of wanting to follow the trends and whatnot, I think it's one of the biggest destroyers that relationship, because now you're trying to keep up with people whom you don't know already.
Yes, sir.
And Elano builder man, if you are building Ostum, how Ostum is look at her with pride. Say again now. If she moves away, Atamo doctor, you must also look at her and say, you know what? Doctor Omone,
yeah.
You understand? Because the problem is that the moment you understand? And the moment to buy loyalty to us is a problem. You will never buy loyalty.
Yeah, there's no love there. There's no relationship.
Live love.
Yeah.
Whatever that you do under those emotions that you are doing, let it not be an investment to anyone. If Sejamonna asemgate.
Yeah.
How do we twella pelo to next door? Haka next door ba keta o ja twella pelo. Ba o kuta strata se kaofela ntate o tsama o ka re o koko esna masiba o kene ko se latela o re nna ke majiwa o to phela monate o ka se bele stress o ka se shape hope o ka se bele anger to anyone.
Yeah.
Wa kena o ipolelle go social development.
Yeah.
O thusa malapa mo kena mo temo ha ba o jetsa ba re chaile na nako ya sasa wa move hape o kena ka next door.
Is it Isaac Hayes? He was being neighborly.
So you're still watching Fireside Conversation. We're talking about gender-based violence against men, and the topic has not been exhausted as yet.
Yeah.
But I want to hear you from you, gentlemen. So, gentlemen, do you think that men are now submissive because women are no longer submissive? I mean, men are abusive because women are no longer submissive.
You know what, to me? That's a deep question, right? That you're asking the issue of whether women, in the first place, we can take it back. Should women be submissive, right? And if I say yes, a lot of people will be upset, right? Especially women, right? They'll say, but why should I be submissive to my husband? Why shouldn't he be submissive? And I think that I want to propose that we look at it from this point, right? If in a relationship between a man and a woman, we both say, let me do unto my partner the way I want my partner to do unto me, that eliminates all conflict, right? Because even if I'm upset at you, understand, if I want to raise my hand, but I remember that I don't want my wife to raise her hand against me, that already on its own is a buffer, right? And also to understand that violence begets more violence. You know, that the Ramatshosa, the first time that you enter into an argument with somebody and then you slap them, the next time you're not going to slap them once, right, Mandla? Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because maybe this person keeps on provoking you, right? And the first time you used violence, you slap them once. The next time they provoke you even more. Now you have to slap them twice, right? And as time progresses, you will find that your level of violence has to increase.
A full-on boxing match,
right?
No?
And then ultimately, you do the unimaginable. You take life. So I would say to you that rather than looking at it from should somebody be submissive or not, we should rather look at what are we trying to build here? Mm-hmm. And what is my goal in this relationship, right? And if I realize that, to me, it's not helping me to progress in my life. She's going south, I am going north, right? What is the point of me forcing issues with this person, right? For my own sanity, perhaps it is better for me to realize that this one is going to lead me down into hell, into the pit, right?
Yeah, man. Just going back to that whole point of women being submissive and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think that what you mentioned was when people come into a relationship, there needs to be that, understanding that you are dealing with another human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another human being whom you want to have in your life.
Yes, sir.
So if you have that person in your life,
Yes, sir.
why is it that you are going to treat that person in a manner that you wouldn't want them to treat you?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. I think what owes to me you have asked, and I was listening, and the doctor is correct. Now we need to check this thing to say submission is one side of the coin. There's the other side of the coin. If we call for submission from women, then it means there's something that has to happen from men. From every force of action, there's a force of reaction.
Yes, True. Sir.
You understand? Now, as men, let's say that we now get to a stage, or maybe let's say that we have told ourselves that women must submit to us. Good and correct, let them submit to us. But then there must be something that we are taking to them.
Yes, in return.
For us to attract that submission. You see? Now, for you to receive submission is like loyalty. Those are things that for a person to be loyal to you, you cannot buy loyalty. It's a decision that a person takes, that I'm going to be loyal to this person. And the very same thing, and for the person to decide to be loyal to you, there's something that you must have done to them for them to realize that you are worth that loyalty. Equally, the issue of submissiveness. For women to be submissive, let us do something to them. As men, let us love them the way they have to be loved. Because something that you love, you cherish, you protect. You see, you treat it gently and nicely. You embrace it with your entire being. Now, once we do that, we are going to activate the submissiveness from women. Now, the problem with men today that they are not they complain about women not being submissive. It's the undivided loyalty. And from men to women. And you should hear what I'm saying. I said the undivided loyalty. Because Dr. Khumalo or Mandla wants the woman, and listen to me, I did not say women, I said woman to submit to him. But now, now on his part, this is one coin. Remember I said the other part is submissiveness, the other part is love. Now he takes the very same coin and go and demand that another person again must do the submissiveness in the same coin. Now you find out that he wants 10 women to submit under him, and it's him alone. Now, I'm not sure if you are following me now. It creates conflict. Remember what we started with. It creates conflict because he expects this one woman to submit to him. But in return, he loves 10 women. And he thinks there's not going to be conflict. There's going to be conflict. Because what you put in is the one that you're going to take out. Now, he has divided his loyalty to 10 women. Or his love to 10 women. And expects the 10 women to submit to him. Now, once there's conflict in the 10, it automatically rises and affects him. And now it then starts to create a narcissistic tendency that we never speak about on men. And the narcissistic tendency is this thing ya gore monna ke selepe o rema ka mo a fetsa a reme ka mo and then an issue of being control freak and say, if I can't have you, no one will have you. But not taking into consideration that the person who broke the loyalty code, it's him. And when they have got nothing else to offer in the form of love, if there's no love, then violence will arise.
Yeah, you know what? I think we are opening another can of worms. But then that's all good and well. I just wanted to go back to the policy makers, right? Well, when we moved into the new dispensation, there was a lot of policies that were drafted, people getting free housing, free this and free that, which has created a culture of expectation, right? It created a culture of expectation, and people don't want to put in the effort into doing anything because government will provide, right? So now when it comes to the policies around the violence, between all the sexes, whether it's men on men, men against women, and so on. Those policies, obviously they must have been done in consultation with the legal fraternity, right? Was it not, in sight, or was it not foreseen that when you put rules down, to say, this is how you ought to behave and engage with each other as a society. Did they not see that they needed to put in place the tools in order to empower the people so that they can be able to deal with whatever violence that arises from the lack of proper interaction amongst each other?
You know, let me just chip in, Doc. And then as I chip in, because you have asked it from the legal perspective as police, then let me just take a moment and read the Domestic Violence Act, which is the one that regulates the relationships or the disputes within a domestic environment. It says the purpose of the act is the following, or its preamble, it says, recognizing that domestic violence is a serious social evil. Let me pause for a moment and now talk to this thing. You have got the government says, recognizing that domestic violence is a serious social, and then the last word that becomes an operative word in the entire thing, evil. So they have defined this dispute as an evil thing. But let's read and see if maybe they are now coming up with a concrete solution to deal with the evil. Because you cannot only recognize that this thing is an evil and leave it there. And it goes on, say that there is a high incidence of domestic violence within South African society. That victims of domestic violence are among the most vulnerable members of society. That domestic violence takes on many forms, that acts of domestic violence may be committed in a wide range of domestic relationships, and that the remedies currently available to the victims of domestic violence have proved to be ineffective. And having regard to the Constitution of South Africa, and in particular the right to equality and to freedom and security of the person, and the international commitments and obligations of the states towards ending violence against women and children. Now listen to it now. It has said it's a social evil. And it then spoke about inequality. Now it identifies who was it really designed for. Because it identifies its people. It says women and men. I mean women and children. And people never speak about this issue. In essence, Mandla, what then this says is that when the people drafted this act, did they have a man in mind? No. Or according to them, men were
perpetrators,
animals that needs to be put in their place using the might of the law. And I'm going to sum it up as I conclude. Discrimination against women and the rights of children. It is the purpose of this act to afford the victims of domestic violence the maximum protection. Listen to it. Maximum protection from domestic abuse that the law can provide, and to introduce measures which seek to ensure that the relevant organs of state give full effect to the provisions of this act, and thereby to convey that the state is committed to the elimination of domestic violence. This is what they now describe to be the preamble. This is what has pushed them to come up with this particular law. But let us ask ourselves a question. Do we see a man being accommodated by this act of 1998, 116 of 1998, in its preamble? No. Save for him being incorporated there indirectly as the perpetrator, yes, who has to be brought into book, who has to be controlled, who has to be managed, who measures has to be implemented, maximum measures according to the drafters of the legislations must come into force and deal with this particular person. And good, it is the law, man, that we must respect that particular law. Everyone must respect it. But this is the very same thing that now a man cannot look at this particular preamble and see himself there as a victim, but he will always see himself as a perpetrator.
It has already cast him away.
It has already cast him away. But now let me show you then when it moves forward and becomes a problem that we are not talking about, notwithstanding the fact that we have identified that this is a social evil. You understand? Now, we now say this is the law that is going to deal with it. a person gets into a court of law and gets a protection order against the husband is the wife who says, I want a protection order against my husband. And then part of the conditions that I want the court to impose is that my husband must not come into my bedroom. You see, my husband insults me. I'm not saying husbands must insult anyone and whatnot. Now the husband receives this document that says an interim order that says you must not insult your wife, you must not abuse her, you must not chase her out of the house. And let's say hypothetically, this is the wife who comes to the house every day 12 midnight. And the reason she has went to the domestic violence court is because she does not want you to reprimand her for coming
late at night.
Late at night. She gets this order because she would demonstrate the messages where you have called her with words that are unprintable, or that you would have sent with WhatsApps that she shows the court that, and the magistrate is convinced that you insult her, and she says you must no longer insult that particular wife. There's also an interim order granted with a warrant of arrest. The magistrates who grant an interim order with a warrant of arrest does that without hearing you. Notwithstanding the fact that they give you an opportunity to anticipate that particular thing within 24-hour notice. With a 24-hour notice, you can anticipate it. But now the problem is that now you have got, let's say this man does not know or he can anticipate that particular thing. He has been given a return date, a date where he is going to say his side of the story. He receives it on the 25th of January. He will say his right, have an opportunity to also tell the magistrate what happens on the 25th of March. That's what we call the return date. So it means from the 25th of January until the 25th of March, the relationship or the house of that particular man is managed by a paper, which when he can go against it, he will be arrested with immediate effect. Now it means this man cannot communicate with this woman.
But they're in the same household.
But they are in the same household. Lo and behold, a situation arises where maybe this woman goes to court and says, this man insulted me after receiving the interim order. And he's arrested. And as he's arrested, he goes to court because there's a warrant of arrest. And the magistrate says, give me an alternative address because you cannot go back to that particular house. What is it that is happening now? You are the one who's paying a bond in this particular house. Now you are told you cannot go back to that particular house until the case is finalized. You see? Now, because the law says that you now move to your parents' home or you are accommodated by a friend or somebody else. And now we get back to a stage where now you go through the entire trial process. Maybe you are found guilty or you are not found guilty. And the case is finished. And there's no longer a condition that says you cannot go back to your house. You go back to your house.
But then what is the difference between domestic violence and gender-based violence?
No, I'm coming to it. Now you go back to your house and there is no one who has addressed. Remember, at the top of the preamble, it speaks about the social
evil.
That needs to be addressed. Now the case is finished. Maybe you are found guilty, you are given suspended sentence. Where is the solution there? Because I always tell people, when you go to court and you walk out of court and the decision that is being pronounced by a magistrate is a product of a trial, not the two of you speaking. Somebody, as they walk out of court, the other one will be happy, the other one will be angry. Now this man has a criminal record. She goes back to the house. Now he has to interact with the wife. The law has not made any provision of after the fact. What happens after a judgment has been pronounced? How do we reincorporate this man or this woman back into his house?